Hi guys, Arthur here from Homeowner DIY. In this video, I'm going to change out the transmission fluid in my 2001 Buick Regal. Now, the last time we did this was about 4 years ago. This car does have a minimal mileage. I mean, every year it's driven almost nothing, but like with everything else, fluids will break down with time. They'll get contaminated with water, dirt, debris, whatever else. So this is going to be a relatively straightforward process on this car. It's very DIY friendly. There's just some things you need to keep in mind. So what we'll do now is material and tools. Alright guys, this is our material list. So I have Dexron 3 fluid. So here's 5 plus 1, 2, 3. For this car, it's 7 liters, but I always recommend get a little bit more in case of spillage or a leak or whatever. Some paper towel, and then I have a new gasket and then filter. And then on the back side of this filter, as you can see right there, there is a gasket as well. So for this job, this is our materials list. So what we'll do now is the tools list. All right, this is our tools list. So I have ramps, a pan for the oil fluid, socket set, degreaser for the outside, light, extension cord, gloves, funnel. Brake cleaner will be for the inside of the pan. Cordless drill, safety glasses because we're going to be working with chemicals. And then over here I have a piece of cardboard because every time I've done this, this has gotten messy. So guys, with that in mind, let's get started. Alright, so I've got the ramps in place. Guys, make sure that the tires are straight so you don't go flying off the ramps. It's never happened to me, but just be cautious when you do this. So with the ramps set up, I'm going to now drive the car onto the ramps. Alright, so our pan is here. This is the oil sump, this is the transmission fluid, and it has bolts going all the way around it. Guys, I didn't mention, but I'll mention this now. I didn't chalk the wheels. I've never had a problem not doing it, so you can if you want. It is not technically necessary. But with that in mind, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to break these bolts all loose. Now, one other thing is, because this car is rarely driven, I don't need penetrating fluid. If you want to use it, you can, but I'm not going to in my case. These bolts are fairly small, so they don't need much torque. So looking at the shape of the pan, we have this section that points out. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around. I'm going to break all the bolts loose every second one. Once I go all the way around the pan, I'll do the other ones. Once they're broken loose, I'll use a cordless drill to take them out. But I want this to be the low end, so everything will come into the pan here in the front. So just be aware of that. And guys, one other thing, the engine is cold. I don't suggest that you do this on a hot engine because the chance of you burning yourself is just so high. Okay, so here's our pan. For the last couple bolts, it's not a bad idea to put one bolt here and like one bolt over here just to help pull the pan up. Keep in mind that the pan is still full of, it still has fluid in it. So the filter came off with the pan itself, but what I'm going to do now is we'll take the pan here, and then we're going to clean everything off. Now, in my case, this came off very easily. That's because this car is not driven all that much. But if the pan is stuck, what you can do is between the gasket and the pan, put a flathead screwdriver and very gently pry the pan away. Don't touch this surface here because you can very easily scratch something and develop a leak. Alright, so this is the transmission, well, where the pan sits anyway. So make sure that you clean all the way around. This one is in fantastic shape, so don't anticipate any problems. So guys, really quick, this is, where the heck is it? Right here. This is where the gasket goes. I'm not going to change this one out because this car is driven so little. Alright, so for this little gasket here, if you want to take this out, they have an L-shape tool. I don't have it. I'm going to leave this in, but if you want to take this out, you can take a flathead, put it right here, and then tap this very gently. Now, the key thing is that you want to be very gentle because what you want to do is this circle, you want to basically crinkle it like a can. So you have a piece that is sticking out inward a little bit. And then you can take some needle nose pliers and then pull this out. But like I said, because this car is driven so little, I'm going to leave this in. But what we'll do now is we'll clean out the pan and look at our filter. Alright, so this is our pan, this is our filter, this is our gasket. So what I did is I put all the bolts back in to make sure that I have them all. These are 10mm bolts, they're all the same all the way around. So one thing is, when you crack these bolts loose and when you tighten them, I recommend you use a ratchet and do this by hand. If you try to use a cordless drill, you can very easily snap these things. They are very weak bolts. You don't need very much torque on them. So here is our old gasket. We'll get rid of that, throw that off to the side. Here's our old filter. So you can see the dirt in the fluid. Like I said, this car isn't driven all that much, but like with everything else, the fluid will get old. And this fluid is very slippery, almost like a lubricant. So holding onto the ratchet was actually a bit of a pain to deal with, but with that in mind, the rest of the fluid in the pan is going to go into my black pan over to the side, and then what we'll do is we'll wipe this all out. So this is our old pan, this is our new pan. Let's compare the two. They look the same. So guys, this is the gasket that I was saying about. So this gasket, what you need to do is you need to get an L-shape tool to pull from the very top here. Like I said, what you can do is always punch this one side in and then clamp on with needle nose pliers and pull it out. But because this car isn't driven that much, I'm going to leave the old gasket in. But the filters, they seem to match up. Now what we're going to do is we'll check the gaskets. Alright, so that is the old gasket, and now we will compare with the new gasket. Okay, the two match up fairly well, so we have the correct parts. So we'll get the old gasket out of the way here, and what we're going to do is we're going to clean out the pan. Alright, so this is the pan. So if you're wondering what this is a magnet for whatever reason. I don't know what it's for, but it's part of the pan. So we'll take our brake cleaner and then we will clean out the inside of the pan. Alright, so the inside of the pan has been cleaned out. Take this opportunity to check the mating surface of the pan here to make sure there's no damage. Now guys, once again, I said if you have a problem taking your pan off, what you need to do is take a flathead screwdriver and very gently pry off the pan, but have the gasket in between. Okay, so if this was still attached to the car, we would have our transmission here, we have our gasket and our pan. So the flathead would go between the pan and the gasket and then give it a turning motion very gently. Take your time because this is very thin metal and you can damage something. But now with the inside cleaned out, what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean out the outside. Alright, so this is the outside of the pan here. We have our degreaser. So what we're going to do is we're going to spray it. Guys, this is the time to make sure that you put on your safety glasses, because I'm sure if you get this degreaser in your eye, it's not going to be very pleasant. So give the degreaser maybe around 10 minutes. And then I'm going to wipe it off with a paper towel. If you have some real stubborn spots, use a brush. But like I said, in my case, this car is not driven all that much. Alright, so this is our pan. It's all cleaned out. The outside has been cleaned out as well. Everything looks good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get ready to put it back onto the car. Alright, so there's our gasket. So we're going to go get this into position along with the filter. Alright, the first thing that has to go on is the filter. So the filter looks like this. It will only fit in one way. So go up and give it a nice firm push. It should go in really smoothly. So now the pan. The pan can be a little bit difficult because the gasket may want to slide out of place a little bit, but it should be not too bad to get the pan back in. So what I would suggest is get the pan up and then get a bolt in a couple corners all the way around to help hold the pan in place. Okay, so take this opportunity to check to make sure that the gasket and the holes all line up fairly well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the cordless drill and the couple bolts that I put in, I'm going to tighten them down just so the pan will be tight to the top. But this is not a final tightening. We just want to get this amount of slack out of the pan and make sure that the gasket is in the right place all the way around. Okay, so with all of the bolts that I put in by hand are now in the pan, what I'll do is I'll very lightly tighten them all up. All the way around. I would say go in roughly a star pattern with this. If you feel resistance, stop and take the bolt out. Something is not aligning correctly, because what is probably happening is you may be cross-threading. Like I said, these bolts are very delicate bolts. You don't need much torque to get these things in. And the last thing you want to do is snap one of them, because then you have to go back and fix it. All right, so the bolts have been loosely tightened all the way around. So what I would suggest is now for your final tightening, do this by hand and go in a star pattern, which means go from here to here, there, and just go all the way across, and then tighten up the pan in a very controlled, delicate manner. Okay, so to refill the transmission, you have to take out the transmission dipstick. That's the red handle here. So this is the master cylinder. The energy block is here in case you guys aren't sure of where this is. It has a red handle. All right, so on the dipstick, it says Dextron 3 fluid only. So this is where you can find the type of fluid that you need for this. So what I'm going to do now is through there, I'm going to put the funnel, and we're going to fill back up to about 7 liters. All right, so I poured about half the 5-liter jug in. This is the time to check for leaks because there's no point in continuing if something is leaking. Everything looks good right now. So I'm going to go ahead and pour the remaining fluid into the transmission. All right, so I put about 6.5 liters in. It says 7, but I always like to go short. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go take the car for a test drive, and we still need to check the level. Now, for this model, you need to check when the engine is at idle and it's warm. So I'm going to go take the car for a quick drive. Make sure everything seems to be normal, and then we're going to do a final top up for our fluid. Alright guys, so we're going to pour the old fluid back into the container, and we want to recycle this fluid responsibly because we want to protect the environment the best that we can. Now keep in mind, not all the fluid is going to fit into this jug. Alright, so the engine is now warm. What I'm going to do is check the fluid level. So we'll wipe it off. And the level is right here at the very bottom, and I'm a half liter short, which means I just need to add the other half of the liter, and then we should be good to go. So nothing's leaking, everything looks good. So what we'll do now is an overview of this job. Alright guys, so that concludes this job. So everything went well. For the pan bolts, I would suggest that you crack these loose using a ratchet by hand, and then tighten, do a final tightening by hand. When you tighten them, I would start in a star pattern going across the pan, and then go every second, and then do a final tightening one more time all the way around. Take your time, go easy with these bolts. They're small, they're brittle, they're very easy to snap. For the inside, I would suggest clean out with brake cleaner because the brake cleaner will evaporate. For the outside, if you want to use a degreaser, that's what I did. Go ahead and do that. But I didn't run into any problems on this job. Everything went really well, so I'm very happy with this. The time on this job. The time was about 2 hours. And the single biggest thing was the lack of space. But 2 hours, I didn't run into any problems. There's nothing in the way. So everything ran really smoothly. The cost of this job. The filter kit and 8 liters of fluid cost me $180. Now this is a fair bit more than it was last time, but this is the times right now. So I have probably easily saved myself around $150 by not taking this to an automotive shop. Make sure nothing is leaking at the end. There's no real reason unless you've damaged anything. If the pan is stuck, then tap very gently with a flathead and go between the pan and the gasket. Don't go against the transmission housing, because if you scratch something, then it's a lot tougher to contend with than just replacing a pan. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. I hope something here is going to help you on your project when you need to go ahead and do that. Guys, till next time, please hit the like button, subscribe, and I'll see you on the next project.